children are radically honest, and children are moved from one emotion to the next without holding on to it and holding on to its story and its grip. And so I think there's a lot we can gain from that. And like, obviously, before we started recording, you mentioned a comment that had been left on one of something we posted of somebody saying, like, every time they listen to me, they feel broken because they don't get enjoyment in the simple things like I do. And I feel that's because I have some elements of a child's perception on things. And it's not something I'm blessed with. It's just like a skill I think you can develop. The skill of noticing, and that's something Rick Rubin talks about. The skill of noticing, the skill of awareness.
By the way, I've read the Creative Act. It was good.
It was once all about playing, and yes, there are like serious material demands, but if you can somehow get those in check and like make it still about play, like an artist does, because that's one thing Rick writes about, isn't it? Everyone's an artist, no matter what you do. Your life can be a piece of art where you value play above all else.
Also, children, they're not rational. They're not logical.
Right. They're driven by desire, like we talked about a couple of episodes ago, about the erotic and the leading your life by decisions and desires that you cannot explain rationally, but feel right on a deep level. They rumble something in your core. And I think children are so much faster to follow those things than adults, because immediately the intellect comes into us and goes, yeah, but what about this logistical point? And what will these people say about it? And how will that affect your reputation?
I asked my friend, do you think we live more in the rational world or the emotional world? And I said, well, a lot of the decisions we make are more emotional than rational. So I would say emotional. And then he kind of went at this with philosophy. Apparently there's two kind of contrasting areas of philosophy called continental and analytic. And continental is about experience and sort of right hemisphere, whereas continental is quite left hemisphere. It's very kind of precision, putting things in logical arguments and chains of reasoning and things like that. And there's a lot of maths in it and things. And I link that because I don't know if we can necessarily bring about that childlike state. I don't think it's possible because we have our obligations and responsibilities. But to me, the best philosophers, they have both the continental and they have both the continent and the analytic. Aristotle, he is able to put together one of the best works on ethics, but he was the first to discover that the earth was round instead of flat. Or Descartes can put together some meditations on how he thinks, how he proves the self exists, but you can also do some really good work into coordinates, and he contributed a lot to mathematics and geometry. So I think rather than having the two at war, the cynicism and the childlike spirit, we can have them both and be really good at both, hopefully. Because I think that's the only application that we can provide. Is like they both have a use in a way. It's good to have a childlike spirit and say to yourself, when you're doing something that's a risk and you fail, you can say to yourself, well, in 10 minutes no one's really going to care. That's more the kind of so that would be maybe more logical, and saying that, look, realistically, no one's going to care. They're all worried about their own lives, and it's going to be, we only live once, and we're infinite people trying to figure the world out. But then there'll be other times when you're working on your passion and you don't want the logic to kind of suppress that passion, and you want to keep your emotion, really feel things, and maybe you're contributing to an art and you want to really feel that emotion and channel it. Well, then the childlike right hemisphere is going to be very important there. So I think, to me, that would be the solution.
I think you've touched on something really quite profound there that I think could be a great point to end this episode on, which is the power of being a paradox in the world. Can you simultaneously have the maturity of a wise adult and yet a playful, childlike approach to reality? Can you simultaneously adopt the philosophies of the internal drill sergeant and the Alan Watts, right? Can you work very, very, very hard and master something in the world, provide value to the world through your skills and your competence, but at the same time have a loose grip on the outcome and a loose grip on your work, and detach your ego from your skills and the things you do? Can you simultaneously be strong and fierce and deadly in the physical world, in the psychological, intellectual world, but also have a very gentle side where you don't use that force for anything but good? And can you attack the world with great power and sort of, and with assertiveness, but also, you know, relax when you need to? Can you switch on and switch off? Can you be a paradox? Can you be an enigma? Can you be someone that people can't really figure out? Because I think there's power in that, in Robert Greene's work, in being that paradox. Can you exist in two worlds at once, and can you take the positives from both? Because that can be powerful, not only for, you know, how you're perceived and all that, and how you perform in the world, but just for your own self. And I think that mastering not just one side of a spectrum, but mastering the positives of both, that's an amazing thing to aim for.
And when I use the example of dealing with evil people, I think it's more valuable to be capable of all those different sets of skills of dealing with that evil person. And if you are, then you can pick through the one that seems more appropriate. Now that's kind of happened. We both had a very violent, a verbally violent experience. Now we have had that once, and we kind of know how to respond to it a little bit better. And I think a great man is able to bark in the way that they're capable of barking, and that they're in the way that sort of Machiavelli says it's better to be feared than loved. In a way, the fear, I think if you're a threat, then you're a protector, and it's good to be a threat in that way, in that you're capable of it, and you're a force to be reckoned with. Like, you have that power behind you, but you don't have to use it. You can still kill people with kindness. And if you've got those other tools in the skill box, then you're a multifaceted, very competent human. And
it's like when I think it was Carl Jung that said, you can't really be a moral person until you understand your capacity for evil, right? It's very different. Let's say being gentle. If being gentle is your only choice, into comparing that to being gentle when you have a real capacity for, you know, being ferocious, there's a complete difference there. You know, the same way you talked about a dog archetype, the same way a dog could bark at a threat or rip a threat to shreds if it's like, you know, an Alsatian or a husky kind of dog, but in the same night it could cuddle up to its owner and it could that love. You know, there is something to it. Like